What if I told you Africa already had a tech boom? It just didn't get remembered. In dusty cyber cafes in early 2000s Lagos, Accra, Nairobi, that hum was the first pulse of something bigger. In the early 2000s, internet access in Africa didn't come via home Wi-Fi. It came through pay-per-hour cafes. In Lagos, there quite literally seemed to be one on every street corner. Inside, young people chatted on Yahoo Messenger, played games, checked emails. These cafes seeded Africa's first digital generation. But before mobile phones, before broadband, how did people connect? In 1994, a group of Kenyan students founded Africa Online, one of the continent's first ISPs. It expanded into Ghana, Uganda, Zimbabwe. This was connectivity on dial-up terms. Remember the global dot-com bubble? Its ripples reached here, too. In the late 1990s, overvalued internet firms soared. But between 2000 and 2002, the bubble burst, collapsing markets worldwide. Africa wasn't immune. Many local ventures fizzled under the same pressures. And yet, something stubborn survived. In Accra, busy internet emerged as a digital hub where entrepreneurs gathered. Across Nigeria and South Africa, people still tinkered in fading cafes and dial-up spaces, still dreaming. Then, in 2009, came a seismic shift, literally. The Seacom undersea fiber optic cable went live, linking East Africa to the global web at a cost 90% lower than satellite-based internet. Suddenly, fast, scalable, affordable connectivity became real. Suddenly, internet accelerated into cafes, universities, and small businesses. The technology surge was no longer starting, it was restarting. What we dismissed as a forgotten boom turns out to have been the foundation, if quietly laid, for today's African digital renaissance. But here is where the story takes a sharp turn. Just as the dot-com dreams were fading, Africa stumbled onto something far bigger than websites. In 2007, Kenya quietly rewrote the rules of money. A simple SMS-based system called M-Pesa, originally meant for microloans, turned into Africa's first true tech revolution. Suddenly, anyone with a basic phone could send and receive money. This wasn't fintech. This was survival tech. Millions who had never seen the inside of a bank now had a financial lifeline. By 2010, M-Pesa was in a side experiment. It was moving nearly half of Kenya's GDP through mobile phones. And it wasn't just Kenya. From Ghana to Nigeria, South Africa to Tanzania, mobile money became the quiet backbone of economies. It did what banks and governments had failed to do for decades: financial inclusion at scale. But money alone doesn't make a tech boom. You also need the pipes, the infrastructure to carry it all. And right on time, something massive was happening under the sea. 2009, the Seacom cable lands on the coast of Mombasa. Suddenly, internet speeds that once felt impossible became reality. By 2010, Nigeria's main one cable followed. Africa was no longer cut off, it was plugged in. Think about it. For decades, a slow dial-up connection cost a fortune. Now, broadband was cheaper, faster, and accessible. This was the oxygen for a new wave of innovation, and the first sparks were already flying. In Nairobi, a small building on Ngong Road became ground zero for Africa's new digital culture, iHub. Founded in 2010, it wasn't just an office, it was a community, a place where coders, designers, and dreamers built the future together. This wasn't Silicon Valley. No million-dollar garages, no Sand Hill Road investors, but it had something different: raw creativity. From Ushahidi, the crisis mapping tool born after Kenya's 2008 election violence, to BRCK, a rugged internet device for Africa's rough terrains, innovation was local, practical, and powerful. And in Nigeria, another wave was brewing. Startups like Andela were training a new generation of African developers, equipping them with skills to code for the world. By 2014, Silicon Valley was finally paying attention. It felt unstoppable. Mobile money, broadband, tech hubs, the pieces were falling into place. But as history shows, booms always come with shadows, and Africa's tech miracle was about to collide with a harsh reality. But here's the thing, every boom has its limits, and Africa's wasn't immune. Take Jumia. Founded in Nigeria in 2012, it was hyped as the Amazon of Africa. By 2019, it was the first African startup to list on the New York Stock Exchange. But its IPO revealed something stark. Most of its sales weren't happening in Africa, and profitability was still far off. Then came Andela, once hailed as a revolution in global outsourcing, training thousands of African developers and placing them with US companies. But by 2019, Andela announced it was reshaping. The reason? The supply of junior devs had outpaced global demand. These weren't failures, they were corrections, signs that Africa's tech boom was hitting a phase every market faces. Scaling up is harder than starting up. And there was another challenge, infrastructure. Yes, mobile internet was widespread, but reliable broadband, stable electricity, logistics networks, still fragile. Investors noticed. After a decade of hype, some venture funds began pulling back. Funding in 2016 dipped. Skepticism grew. Was Africa's tech miracle just smoke and mirrors? But here's the twist. This correction wasn't the end. It was a turning point. Because while some startups struggled, others adapted and thrived. Flutterwave, founded in Nigeria in 2016, cracked payments infrastructure, powering transactions across 30-plus African countries. Paystack, another Nigerian startup, got so good at it that Stripe acquired them for over $200 million in 2020. But let's not sugarcoat it. Africa's tech ecosystem was, and still is, fragmented. A startup that succeeds in Kenya might fail in Nigeria. What works in Lagos may not work in Accra. And yet, beneath the cracks, something bigger was happening. A generation of Africans was learning to code, build, and dream in tech. Even if startups failed, the people didn't. And in that sense, the forgotten tech boom wasn't really forgotten. It was absorbed. It became the soil where the next wave of African innovation was planted. Because the story doesn't end here. After the dot-com dreams and the mobile money wave, after the hubs, the hype, and the corrections, Africa's tech future isn't about looking back. It's about what comes next. So, where does Africa's tech story go from here? If the last 2 decades were a roller coaster of promise, hype, and hard lessons, what does the next decade look like? Here's one undeniable fact. Africa is young. The median age is about 19 years old, compared to 38 in the US and 43 in Europe. That means an entire generation is growing up digital first, leapfrogging desktops straight into smartphones. Tech hubs have evolved too. Remember Nairobi's iHub? That model has now multiplied. Over 1,000 innovation hubs across Africa today. Some fizzle out, but many are pushing into deep tech, AI, biotech, clean energy. But here's the hard truth. Capital is still uneven. In 2022, 75% of all African startup funding went to just 4 countries: Nigeria, Kenya, South Africa, and Egypt. If you're building in Lusaka or Bamako, good luck getting noticed. And foreign influence, it's still here. China dominates infrastructure, fiber optics, smartphones. The US is competing through venture capital and acquisitions. Even Dubai and Singapore are quietly moving into the African tech scene. But the real story isn't about outsiders. It's about Africans solving African problems. Fintech apps that let farmers trade harvests, solar startups that bring light to rural homes, edtech platforms teaching millions of kids remotely. Because the boom we thought was forgotten, it wasn't really lost. It was planting seeds. The early internet cafés, the first mobile payments, the failed startups, each was laying groundwork. What seemed like collapse was actually a foundation. Africa's tech story isn't a copy-paste of Silicon Valley. It's different, messy, improvised, but uniquely suited for a continent where challenges spark invention at a scale the world hasn't seen yet. So next time you hear about Africa's tech boom, remember, it didn't start today. It started decades ago, in dusty rooms with failing dial-up connections, in risky bets that flopped, and in the resilience of dreamers who refused to stop building. The story of Africa's forgotten tech boom is really the story of Africa's future. And this time, it might not be forgotten.